Shalom and welcome to Once Upon a Soul, an exploration of 68 unique stories inspired by the teachings of Rav Asher Freund, Zatzal. This podcast series is sponsored in loving memory of Mrs. Klari Safran, Alea HaShalom. May the neshama of Rivka Sarah Bas Rabbi Yehושע have an aliyah. Ma'aseh b'chassid echad, there was a story with a particular chassid, she'amru lai, who was told, she'yitzak laHashem liYeshua krova, that he should call out to Hashem for a salvation to whatever challenges he was facing. Va'amar, but he said to himself, Eich etzak lifnei kol bnei ha'ir, how can I scream to Hashem in front of other people who live in this village or in this city? Harei eitzeli ma'at achutza, let me go outside, away from other people, the etzak, and there I will scream to Hashem. V'yatza mechutz le'ir, and he walked outside of the city limits. V'ratza litzak, and he wanted to call out to Hashem. V'v'ra sham echad chayrish asadeu, he saw a person out there who was plowing his field. V'amar, and he thought to himself, Eich etzak lefanav, how can I scream to Hashem in front of this person? There's somebody else here, I don't feel comfortable. So v'halach oid kivras derech michutz liyishuv, so then he traveled a long way into the wilderness. V'yishev es atzmai, and now he felt comfortable, she'achshav yitzak, that now he can finally scream to Hashem properly. But then he thought to himself, wait, im etzak, if I scream to Hashem, yagiu abrius, then maybe other people will hear it even though I'm so far away. V'yishalu, and they'll begin to ask themselves, mazeh ba'al mazen, they'll come to investigate. I'm not far enough away from other people. He still didn't feel comfortable screaming out to HaKadosh Baruch Hu as he knew that he wanted to do, as he knew that he needed to do. V'nafal al eitza, and then he thought to himself, okay, I know what I'll do. Sheyava b'layla, I'll come in the nighttime. V'yitzak, and then I'll scream to Hashem properly. So uba b'layla, he came at night, v'rotza litzak, and he wanted to begin finally to call out to Hashem with all of his heart. But v'chashav, and he began to think to himself, ulay yesh b'briya she'enim nirim, maybe there are people here, just I can't see them. V'yivalu, and they're going to be bewildered by my screaming. V'yirtzu lachkar, and they're going to want to investigate what's making all this noise. V'eich etzak, and how could I scream in such a situation? Ella Avay achar chatzos halayla, the etzak. Let me come really after midnight when everyone's for sure sleeping, and then I'll scream properly. Uba achar chatzos halayla, so he comes after midnight. V'shaman, he hears achayos miyalalos, then he hears all the animals. V'tzayakos, and all the animals crying out and screaming and wailing, all the sounds that animals make in the nighttime in the forest. Upachad litzak, and now he was too terrified to scream. V'chazal lebeisai, and he went back home. V'nisa oidpam, and then after that he tried a different way to call out to Hashem and to really let loose. V'oidpam, and again. But each and every time he wanted to call out to Hashem, again he would think of another reason why this is not the right time or this is not the right circumstance. Tragically, until sha'avru yamim v'shanim, until many days passed and many years passed. But he saw that the salvation was still distant from him. He was still struggling with what he was struggling with. He still had that initial challenge that caused him to want to call out in the first place. So one day, he went back to the forest. And he shut out all the different thoughts and all the different ideas in his mind that were preventing him from calling out to Hashem all these long years. Va'amar, and he said to himself these four glorious words, Etzak al kol panim, I don't care. I'm going to scream out to Hashem regardless, irrespective of all the thoughts that I have that are telling me why it's not the right time and it's not the right place and why I shouldn't let loose and to call out to Hashem like I know I need to. And he began to cry out and to call out and to scream. And he was just screaming from the depth of his heart and really letting loose what he needed to let loose. The samach simcha gedola, and this brought such a spirit of tremendous joy into his being. The takef Yeshua, and immediately he experienced the salvation that he had been waiting for. And there are so many different ways of understanding this incredible story, so many nuances. It's just a tiny story, but like all these, it packs a punch. There's so much here. But maybe one element to focus on is this, that when he screamed out, The words are v'tekev haisala Yeshua. He immediately experienced his salvation. It's almost like the ultimate essence of what he was challenged by, whatever it was that he was struggling with, was really bound up with his insecurity and with his own feeling trapped by that part of him that was constantly pushing him down, by that part of himself that was constantly telling him, oh, you have to worry about what other people are thinking of you and what are they going to say, and you have to find this exact time in this exact place. That itself was his challenge. And that whatever it was that he was struggling with was novea, it was flowing forth from that ultimate embodied struggle that he was having inside of himself. And that when he was able to let loose and he was able to free himself and he was able to finally just let himself do what he knew that he needed to do, to just call out to Hashem properly with all of his heart and soul, the joy that brought into his life, the understanding that really nothing else matters. Al tivtuchu b'nedivim, a person should never care, ma yaseli adam, like we say in Hallel, what does it matter what other people think? A person knows what he needs to do, so let loose. Let loose, call out to Hashem, shivchi kamayim libech, mi beten sha'ol shivati, from the depth of the Gehenna that we experience, from there, shivati elecha, call out to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When a person is able to do that, therein lies the salvation. Therein lies the freedom. Therein lies the opening of so many gates to finally be able to live a real life, worrying about what really deserves to be worried about, and looking away from all those different elements, those voices within ourselves that are rooted in a lack of self-worth, that are rooted in self-loathing, that are rooted in this concern for what other people think, for what other people will say, to be able to just really break all those boundaries, and for a person to come to a point where they say, listen, I dropping all other considerations, etzak al kol panim. It's just a mashal. It doesn't mean that all of us need to go out and start hollering to Hashem, in the middle of the street. But all of us have that nakuda where it comes time to say, enough. Im loy achshav emasai. Until when are we going to be looking for the perfect moment, for the perfect circumstance? Etzak al kol panim. I'm going to take the next step in my Yiddishkeit now. There's tremendous freedom in that. There's tremendous awareness that all that exists is just this present moment, and the past and the future, they're illusions. And this idea that the perfect circumstance is coming, if only I'll just wait around long enough, it's an illusion. To connect to the present moment, to say, Etzak al kol panim, things don't need to be perfect, I'm starting now. There's joy in that, there's freedom in that, and there's salvation in that. And sometimes that's the foundation to allow for great, great shefa, for incredible influx of blessing to flow down into our lives. We should be zoche to it, to be freed from all these constraints, to experience this simcha and to call out to HaKadosh Baruch Hu with all of our heart, all of our soul, from whatever imperfect circumstance, with no other consideration, to take the next step in our Yiddishkeit and to experience salvation in so doing. Be'ezras Hashem Yisbarach. Thank you so much for listening. Wishing you the most wonderful day up ahead.